I'm going to turn our attention now to news that obviously just came through. I announced it just a little earlier on, but perhaps we can look at some of the facts and figures with regards to what transpired. Congratulations, the Proteas, of course, the South African cricket team. They have buried the Chokers tag. The Proteas arrived at Lords in London for the final of the ICC World Test Championship, and they arrived as outsiders, but now they leave as champions. This comes obviously having beaten the champions Australia. This was by 5 wickets early on day 4 to win that Test Championship match for a third time. They resumed in 213 for the loss of 2 wickets. They were obviously chasing a total of 284 for victory. The Proteas lost 2 wickets fairly earlier on, but that could have set the cat amongst the pigeons. But of course, opening batsman Aiden Markram put on 147 runs for the 3rd wicket, with captain Themba Bavuma, who took his team to victory, of course, with 6 runs. He scored 136 in the Proteas' cause, winning the first final of the ICC event in 27 years. Now, the Proteas also won the Test Championship back in 2012 and 2015, but it was a different format then. And perhaps to weigh in on this feat and also just look at what this means for the nation at large, Aslam Kota is going to be joining us. He's a commentator. Aslam, a very good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. What a remarkable feat. We finally buried the hatchet. We buried the title of being chokers. What's your reaction for the Proteas this time round, as obviously the world the nation celebrates this feat?
Well, Liesl, I must say that first and foremost, it's a really bad time to be actually talking to me, because my emotions have certainly overcome me a great way, but It's great to see the smile on your face. I'm trying to force one, but I can guarantee you that I'm extremely happy with what has just transpired at Lords. It's one of the most sensational days in the history of South African cricket. All told, there have been other great victories over time, but this is the main one. This is the one the country wanted. This is the one the game actually needed in this country. And I think generally for Test cricket around the world, this particular victory with South Africa's name on the trophy at last, and this is the World Test Championship. It's only the 3rd of its kind. The mace we did certainly hold under the captaincy of Graeme Smith, but this one means all that much more.
Do you want to speak to some of those standout moments as well in this game? I mean, we know that South Africa and Australia have an arguably bitter rival, and so the street cred, it means a great deal as well. But if we're looking at some of those standout moments, the leadership from Themba Bavuma, tell us what you witnessed there in terms of performance as well.
Well, Liesl, I mean, the first thing that I'd like to touch on is that South Africa and the rest of the teams around the world do not set the future Test program in place. It's done by the ICC. So there was so much of criticism when South Africa managed to score 7 Test victories in a row and found themselves in the Test Championship final. There was so much of criticism around the world regarding the format, and that it needed to be re-looked at because it was somewhat unfair. So with all of that against the South Africans, against the mightiest of all Test teams in the last few years, the Australians, at Lords in a cup final, down and out in the first innings, having been dismissed for a very paltry, 138, and they conceded such an important 74-run lead to the Australians. But what I'd like to touch on is the fact that South Africa failed in the first innings with the bat. What kept them in the game was the bowling. And I mean, here you cannot for one moment discount the efforts of all of the bowlers. And if it wasn't for all of the bowlers, we wouldn't have been in this position. But the standout performance was certainly that of Kagiso Rabada. He eventually picked up 10 wickets for 110 runs. And it was a seminal performance. And had it not been for this innings in this chase of Aiden Markram's, he certainly would have been a huge candidate for man of the match. But in essence, I think what we need to see here is that from the coaching staff to the way the young players, I'll give you a statistic which will pretty much astound you, I'm sure.
Sure.
Is that the number of Test matches that just 2 of the Australians have played between themselves, South Africa's entire team's Test caps don't add up to it. So that gives you an idea when it comes to the experience that South Africa were already going to be up against. And of course, the occasion is so big. And to have overcome that, you have to take your hat off, first of all, for Themba Bavuma's leadership on and off the field, the way he's handled the media, and of course, the way Shukri Conrad, who's gently a gentleman with a boorish style, but he certainly has a method to his madness. I mean, his selection choices, some of them so questionable, his man management, and then he comes through every time with a thumbs up. You know, I think you just can't even criticize him anymore. You can't even find a gap anywhere to say that he's got things wrong. He's been very, very good for the South Africans. And just to say that this is the greatest fourth innings performance by a South African team, and it will rate amongst the best in Test history. So you heard it from me. Okay. And it is also the second highest fourth innings run chase at this particular ground. So all round, I mean, those statistics, there'll be more coming up, I suppose, with the writers as they knock off all of the stories on their laptops. But I mean, those are essentially what stand out for me. And for the game itself, Liesl, I cannot tell you what this will do to South African cricket, more so for the detractors in amongst the CSA hierarchy as well, and those that don't favor this particular format simply because it costs too much, will now have something to answer to. And hopefully they'll be making decisions that will favor all of the formats and not just some of them.
Well, long live long format cricket, Aslam. Thank you for your time at this hour. I'm certainly a fan. I'm so proud. Of course, we are celebrating behind the Proteas, having just clinched that title. Aslam Kota, their commentator, weighing in. South Africa now taking that WC final title. Of course, that trophy being lifted there, ending a 27-year-long wait. Of course, we're looking at some of the stats, some of the outstanding performances from our bowlers, including Rabada. You're looking at Cummings' innings. You're looking at Themba Bavuma, who was battling a hamstring injury and continue to lead that charge there. And we are celebrating all the way from Zanzibar, of course, as they are flying the flag high there in Lords, having beaten Australia.